None of the local residents could understand why this horse was always surrounded by a pack of wolves, but was never attacked by them. It was only when one of them got to know this strange group of animals better that he managed to find out what was going on. The explanation was more shocking than they could have imagined. At first, they thought they needed to save the horse from the wolves. However, it turned out that the situation was the other way around. A hunter named Kevin spent a day searching for the horse surrounded by wolves. He had heard stories about it from the locals and was now close to the animal, ready to take a shot at it. This would be a great trophy for his hunting. Kevin had not yet pulled the trigger when he noticed something strange happening to the horse. His curiosity got the better of him, and he crept closer to the scene to get a better view. He needed to take a closer look. All of a sudden, everything became clear to him. It was now clear why the wolves followed the horse with such jealousy. Without harming or killing it, Kevin realized that the rest of the world needed to know about this. But what exactly did Kevin see? Why were the wolves chasing the horse? And would Kevin shoot the animal after all? When the locals first found an abandoned horse, they wanted to capture it and return it to the stable where it had escaped from. It was dangerous for the horse to wander alone in this cold forest. However, they soon realized that the horse was not alone. As they approached, they discovered that it was surrounded by wolves, and as soon as the wolves noticed that there were people climbing the mountain, they approached them. They growled and bared their teeth, making it clear that they were not to be trifled with. The locals decided to leave the area immediately. Although the villagers wanted to save the horse, they decided it was not worth risking their lives to do so. They hurried back to safety as quickly as possible, believing the wolves were about to attack the poor animal. However, to their relief, nothing like this happened. The wolves did not chase them, but instead calmly approached the horse and surrounded it as if protecting it. The villagers were confused by this behavior. They assumed the wolves were desperate for food after a difficult winter. Reports from across the region had indicated that wolves had been attacking people and animals in their search for food. It seemed likely that the wolves had simply become desperate and were seeking any source of food they could find. One of the villagers proposed a theory. Perhaps the wolves had learned to associate humans with kindness and protection. Perhaps they had seen humans helping other animals and had learned that humans were not always a threat. This theory seemed plausible, and the villagers decided to leave the wolves alone, hoping that they would find other sources of food and leave the village alone. Wolves had recently made a large kill and were still well fed. It would be wise to keep the horse alive and only consume it in more difficult times. Shortly after, they noticed the horse slowly wandering back into the forest with the wolves following it. How the horse remained so calm throughout this time was a mystery to everyone. They assumed this was the last they would see of the animal, but they were mistaken. After the encounter, the locals looked at each other and discussed what to do. Was it morally right to interfere in this natural phenomenon and try to save the horse? They couldn't reach a consensus, but they all agreed that they should ask around to see if anyone in the village had lost a black and white horse. The horse's owner deserved to know what had happened. To their surprise, no one in the village appeared to have lost a horse. While searching for the owner, they discovered that a woman had recently purchased a horse that matched the description of the missing one. The woman claimed to have found the horse wandering in her yard and brought it home. She was grateful for the help in finding her beloved pet. Local residents met a woman who seemed to know a lot about horses. It was clear that she had seen the black and white horse before. She began to tell them about a strange encounter she had with the horse a week earlier. She was walking in the woods when she saw the horse surrounded by a pack of wolves. The woman was not the only one to notice this unusual behavior, and it seemed that others had also seen it before. Many villagers had been talking about the strange behavior of the animals for some time. They were convinced that the wolves had no intention to harm the horse. 3 locals were so intrigued by the story that they decided to look for the horse again the next day. Sure enough, they saw it again near the village. All three confirmed that the wolves showed no interest in attacking the horse. The trio noticed a horse in a field, with wolves following it at a distance of about 3 meters. This sight puzzled them, and they decided to collect evidence and share it with the world. They took pictures from a safe distance and posted them on social media. Within minutes, the photos had been shared widely, and people from all over the world saw them. One of these viewers was a young hunter named Kevin. When he saw the photos, he was intrigued and wanted to learn more. At first, he thought the images might be fake, but after looking at them carefully, he realized they were real. This story caught his attention, and he decided to investigate further. When Kevin saw photographs of animals from different angles, he was convinced that they were real. After realizing that this was a unique phenomenon, he felt a strong desire to find out what caused this unexpected partnership. This became an obsession that he couldn't get rid of. He wanted to know what was happening in the forests in the middle of the Alaskan mountains. After a while, he packed his hunting gear and drove 4 hours to the location, the village. There was more to his intentions than he wanted to share, but he decided to keep them to himself for now. If anyone asked, he would say that he was always interested in animal behavior and wanted to learn more about what was happening here. But his true goal was to catch this beautiful horse and use it as a trophy. Kevin collected unique trophies all over America, and killing the alpha wolf would be a great addition to his collection. It became a local legend, heard by friends, relatives, and neighbors. Kevin noticed this and realized he needed to act quickly. He stayed in a motel a little further from the village and planned to go into the forest the next morning. He didn't want to wait for the pack to return to the village, as that could draw more attention. He needed to complete his task before that happened. The sun rose and he quickly headed into the forest, making sure no one noticed him along the way. When he finally arrived, everything seemed eerily quiet, and the forest seemed almost abandoned. This was strange, as Kevin had spent most of his free time there since childhood. He could easily recognize when something was wrong, and it made sense that there were fewer wild animals in the forest due to the cold weather. However, while walking, he noticed something else. No matter where he looked, he couldn't see a single living creature for miles. This was unusual for him, as he was an experienced hunter and knew how to recognize animals nearby. He stopped and listened for a few minutes, hearing only the sounds of nature around him. Fortunately, these sounds told him what he needed to know. While listening, he noticed some differences in the howls and realized that something was different about the animals in the area. That could only mean one thing. Somewhere next to him was a pack of wolves. He knew that only wolves would accept the horse into their territory, as their territories often cover vast areas. It would be the biggest kill of his life, and he would finally show everyone in the hunting community what he was capable of. Everyone would look up to or envy him for his incredible catch. From the howling, he could tell the wolves were coming straight towards the village. He hoped it wouldn't happen, because if the horse got too close to civilization, people might see him. Shoot it, and if that happened, it would all be over for him. Kevin realized he needed to take a different approach if he wanted to succeed. He thought for a moment and decided speed was the key. He ran through the forest as fast as he could, heading towards the wolves' howls. However, there was great risk involved. As he fled, he realized he might not make it out alive. There was much more noise, and there was a chance that the pack might hear him. If that happened, the wolves might get scared. However, Kevin needed to take risks if he wanted to have a chance of success. He kept running until he finally saw what he was looking for. Fortunately, it didn't take long. Soon he noticed a large animal moving between the trees. Kevin froze, unsure if the creature had noticed him as well. From what he could tell, the tall animal definitely had black and white fur. Could this be the horse that everyone was talking about? As Kevin got closer, he was finally able to get a better look. At least 4 wolves were surrounding the horse, which seemed completely calm. Kevin was amazed that the horse wasn't afraid of the wolves at all, and, even crazier, the wolves showed no intention of harming it. The animals didn't move, but just circled each other in one spot. Kevin slowly approached the scene, trying to figure out what was going on. Kevin knelt down and peered through the scope of his rifle. Could he aim accurately? It was almost impossible, as the horse kept running around the trees. Kevin knew that he only had one chance, so he had to act quickly. If he missed, the noise would alert all the animals, and they would surely attack him. Normally, this would scare off the wolf pack. But this group was acting strangely, so Kevin couldn't rule out the possibility that they wouldn't run away. He became more convinced of this thought as he realized that no matter what, the wolves wouldn't be harmed if he shot at the horse. First, he needed to make sure the wolves couldn't attack him when they knew he was there. He needed a place where he could get a good view of the horse and be safe from the wolves. He understood that this was crucial. If he didn't find such a place, he would be in danger. He may not return home alive. Kevin wandered around a bit but couldn't find anything that could serve as shelter. However, he wasn't in a hurry. The horse appeared to be resting, and the wolves had also settled down around it, so it seemed like they would stay there for a while. Suddenly, Kevin noticed a tree right beside him. It seemed like he could climb it easily, and upon closer inspection, he realized that it was the perfect spot for filming. He had a clear view of the horse, but it was too high for the wolves to reach. He grabbed a few branches and slowly, but surely climbed higher. When he found a stable place to sit for a while, he paused to observe the animals. Mammals. They still hadn't noticed his presence, and he knew this was his chance. It was from that spot that he should shoot. The horse that Kevin now saw still seemed unaware of his presence, just like the pack of wolves around it. It was clear that he was wearing special clothing that prevented mammals from smelling his scent. And they were all clearly busy with something else, but Kevin couldn't figure out what exactly. The branches Kevin was leaning on seemed strong enough to support his weight. He slowly picked up the rifle and looked through the scope with his right eye. He was about to take aim when he heard a strange noise. He couldn't tell where it was coming from at first, but it kept getting louder. He looked around but saw no movement, and it was getting closer. Before he knew what was happening, the branches he was leaning on gave way, and he fell to the ground. He closed his eyes and waited for the impact, resigned to the possibility that this could be his end. But then, for the first time, he felt truly happy. The thick snow cushioning his fall had saved him from serious injury, and although he probably had some bruises, he realized that nothing was broken. His relief was short-lived, however, as he heard the howling of approaching wolves. When Kevin fell into the snow, he probably saw the wolves too. When he emerged from the snow, he was almost face to face with the wolves, who showed their teeth with bad intentions. Kevin tensed and waited for an attack, but it never came. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the wolves were retreating. They made room for a horse that was approaching him. This was strange, as if the leader of the pack had decided his fate. Would he live or die? Kevin barely dared to move as the horse came closer. He closed his eyes as the animal sniffed him carefully. It lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity to Kevin. Finally, he felt the horse's warm breath disappear. When he opened his eyes again, the horse turned and walked away. The wolves' behavior changed, and they followed the horse. It seemed that the wolves had no intention of leaving the area. Kevin tried to stand up and take a few steps back. He was still scared that the wild animals might change their mind, but there were no signs of it. After the horse stopped sniffing him, the wolves seemed to lose interest in him. They no longer saw him as a threat and even turned their backs on him. No one from the pack looked out for him anymore. How could these animals be so confident? Had they not had any unpleasant experiences with humans before? Or was it because of the horse that they were so calm? Perhaps the wolf had grown up around humans and learned to trust them, which is why she trusted Kevin too. And obviously, all the other wolves followed her example. This only increased Kevin's curiosity about the bond between these animals. Now he was sure that the wolves were protecting the horse for more than just safety. They had some other reason to protect her. The horse led the way, and Kevin followed. Even now, the horse seemed to have chosen the route they were taking, and Kevin still wasn't sure why. He decided to follow the herd for a while and observe them. He kept a safe distance to make sure everything was fine, but didn't try to hide himself. These animals weren't afraid of him, so as long as he didn't surprise them, everything should be okay. It might have been a risky decision, but it was the only way to get the answers he really wanted. After walking for about an hour, the horse and wolves stopped near a tree. Kevin's eyes widened as something shocking happened. He rubbed his eyes, wondering if he was imagining things. Could this be a trick? He stared at what he thought was impossible. In his life as a hunter and woodsman, he'd seen many strange things from animals, but what the horse was doing now seemed like something out of this world. Although it finally explained why the wolves had been chasing this horse for so long without killing it. It seemed like they had some sort of collaboration, which was unheard of, but it certainly would be the answer to all the questions regarding this strange wolf pack. Maybe he wasn't imagining things. Then, a real miracle started to happen. While the wolves were waiting calmly around, the horse reared up and tried to climb high enough to get something from the tree above them. Kevin had forgotten how tall horses could be. The wolves, of course, would never be able to climb to that height. But what was so special about that tree? Kevin looked up and saw an old hunting trap that had caught a wild boar. The poor animal froze to death there. Apparently, someone had set that trap, but the chances of that person returning to that location were slim, given the extreme cold. Kevin could only guess that there were hundreds of boar traps in the forest. The houses around the village were far away, and getting to the supermarket wasn't always easy. Because of this, many people made their living by hunting wild animals. Setting traps was a tradition. The wolves likely smelled the trapped animals and noticed they could be good food during the winter months. Kevin thought the pack might have brought the horse to these places to get food. Now, as he thought more about it, he realized that in exchange for the help, the wolves let the horse live. They might even have protected it as one of their own, making it an important part of the pack. He couldn't believe his eyes when he saw this special collaboration between the horse and the wolves. How these very different animals coexisted and depended on each other. Kevin thought twice about killing the horse. He was really unsure about what to do. Did he need another trophy, or was it more important for the wolves to preserve their sole breadwinner? Deep down, Kevin knew that he needed to let the horse and the wolves go. He waited until they were far away and watched them until they were out of sight. At first he was disappointed that he hadn't brought home the trophy, but then he realized that he had seen something even more beautiful. He witnessed a special interaction between animals that couldn't normally live together. Kevin knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, so he decided to keep it a secret. He didn't tell anyone about what he had seen that day in the forest, and the legend of the horse and its pack continued to spread among the locals. Kevin returned home feeling happy, knowing that the animals had worked together, and this had increased their chances of survival. He was grateful to have seen such beauty with his own eyes,